Hello there! Today we continue to study how to write to create your own custom Python plugin in the QGIS. So in the previous video we've created just a user interface of our plugin. Here it is. So we have two inputs, two labels and one button. And in this video we'll try to create the logic, the code of your Python plugin. So let's try to do it. First of all, let's go to the Visual Studio Code and see the structure of your code, the structure of files in the folder of the Python plugin. Here it is. This is the structure of your folder. So there are different files, for example, the UI file, that is just an XML file, so you can change something here, not in the Qt Designer. There are different Py files, and we will work with this file, mynewplugin.py, so the name of your plugin.py. Here it is. Let's see on the structure of this file. First of all, of course, there are several imports here, and then there are several functions. As you remember, when we created a Python tool, there were also some functions, some default functions that we need to change. And here is the same picture. We have some default functions and we can change their bodies and also create our own functions. So let's see on the structure of this code. First of all, the function init, initialize. This is the first function that will run, and here we can see some important things. So first of all, we have iFaceObject. We can use iFaceObject through self.iFace from all functions of your class. And then in this function you can see some variables that you do not need to change. So the most important thing is iFace, and also you can create here some global variables, some properties of your class. For example, you can write self.myProperty equals to something and use it from every function of your class. The next function is translate. So you can translate here any text in your plugin. So we will not use this function for today, but you should know about it. Then two functions, add action and initialize graphical user interface. So you can see here the adding of an action that will run your graphical user interface. And in these sections you can read all parameters that are given here. From my point of view, in the most cases of creating Python plugin, you do not need to change these functions, but I suppose if you are interested in it, you can see all parameters here that are used for creating actions. So the path to your icon, some text, some callbacks, and so on. Of course, all links on the documentation and tutorials will be under this video. So let's go further. Function onClose plugin. This function will run when you close your plugin, as you can understand. We will work with this function in this video. The next function is unload, so it runs when you unload your plugin from the QGIS. And the last function is run, so it runs when you start your plugin, when you click on the button of your plugin, and here we will also make some changes in this video. And another important thing I want to tell you, that here you can also create your own functions, and then you can use them, you can connect them to the clicking on some buttons and so on and so on. So let's see how to create the logic, the algorithm of our plugin. First of all, let's remember what we want to do in our plugin. So first of all, let's remember the logic of our plugin. As you can see, as you can remember from the previous video, we have two inputs here and one button. And we want to pass here two numbers, the latitude and the longitude, and to click on this button. And after clicking, we want to open in the browser the Google Maps with the center of a map in these two coordinates. So let's go to our code and try to do something. First of all, we need to understand how we can debug our code. Let's make some changes, for example, in the onClose plugin function. So we add a print row, and we want to understand where we can debug our code. So where we will see this text of this print. Let's save our file and go to the plugin reloader and reload our plugin and see the changes. So let's press on the reload button. Let's start our plugin and open the Python console. and let's see our changes. So let's try to close our plugin, and here we can see our print. It means that you can debug your code using Python console. Let's add some printings to the run function, for example here, and let's save it and reload. Okay, let's click on the button of our plugin, and we successfully see the text from the run function of our plugin. Okay, we understand how to debug our code, and now let's try to add some logic to our Python plugin. And here in the last part of our code, we will try to connect a new function to the button that we have in our plugin. For doing this, first of all, we need to create a new function. For example, let's create it here before the onClose plugin function. So, for example, we create a function openGoogle with a self parameter, and in the body of this function we just add the print row with the text my function. And now we need to connect this function to our button. So, as you can see here, we have the example of connecting a function onClose plugin, in this case, to some event, for example, closing plugin. And we need to connect our function to the event of clicking on your button. So how we can do it? So first of all, we need to study how to get our button from the Python. So for doing this, let's try to open our user interface file. And as you remember in the previous videos, we've said that in the object inspector, in the UI file, you can see all your names of your components. We've called button push button. The input of the latitude we've called line edit lat. The input of the longitude we've called line edit long. So these names we will use in our code to get these objects, to get these components, and to work with them. Let's go to our code and write such row. So we write self-doc widget to get the interface of our plugin, then the name of the object of a button, the push button, and then the name of the event we want to connect our function to. So this is the clicked event. So after clicking, right after clicking, the function openGoogle will run. So it is the simple row, just connect the function to some event. So let's save our file, and right now we'll see the changes in our plugin. Let's clear the Python console, let's update our plugin and click on it. So here we can see the familiar text starting my new plugin from the run function, and now let's click on our button. So right after clicking, we've got this text my function from the print row in the openGoogle function. So from here we've got this text. So let's click one more time and we will have another text, one more, and so on. But let's try to close our plugin and to open it again. So let's clear our Python console, let's click on the Python plugin button, and let's try to click again on our button. And we see that our function runs 2 times. Let's close it again, let's clear, let's repeat 3 times. So the logic is very simple. Every time we open our plugin, run function runs. And every time when we open our plugin, this row connects our function to the event of clicking on the button. So it means that openGoogle function will run more and more times after running the run function. So this is a problem, and what we need to do with it. Let's see onClose plugin function. And here we see the one important row, the disconnecting of functions. So when you close your plugin, you need to disconnect all functions that were connected to the different events of your components, some buttons, some inputs, and so on. So here we need to add the disconnection of our openGoogle function. Let's save our file and see the changes. So let's clear our Python console, reload our plugin, run it. So the first time is okay. Let's close it, clear, run without reloading. And here we can see that it runs only one time and we solved our problem. So it's okay, we've solved our problem, and now we can just change the body of our open Google function. So we need to change print my function to some logic to the opening the URL in the browser. So let's do it. Let's see what we have here. First of all, we create two variables, latitude and longitude, and as we did before with the push button, so we get the object of the input by its name. So let's see here. This is the line edit let, this input, and this input is line edit long. So here we use these names, and just with the method text we can get the text in this input. So these two variables, latitude and longitude, are strings, and we use them as a string, and the last row in this function is opening the URL. So for open URL you need to use QDesktopServices object and its method openURL. You can read about this in the documentation, and as a parameter you will have the QURL object that takes a string, a link exactly as a parameter. And here is the link to the Google Maps, and we changed here numbers of latitude and longitude, and also here we have zoom level. We've set it to the 13 zoom level. You can change it. For example, as the home task, you can add the third input in your plugin, in the user interface of your plugin, and get this number, this zoom level from this input. So it is very simple, only 3 rows of code. So let's save our plugin and reload it. Let's, for example, type 50 and 2, and let's click show in Google. Here it is. We've got 50 as the latitude, 2 as the longitude, and our zoom level. So it is very simple. We've reached our goal. We wrote our own custom Python plugin, and that's it for this video. So we've studied the structure of the Python code, we've studied how to get the objects from the user interface from the Python, and also we've studied how to connect our own custom functions with the different events. So feel free to write comments under this video, to ask us the questions about Python and the QGIS, and send us your feedback, and subscribe on this channel.